Hello everyone and welcome to this edition of HCS Matters. My name is John Wright and I'm the Public Relations Director for Hardin County Schools, and we're here in the brand new home of philanthropy, the home of the new home of the Central Kentucky Community Foundation. Devette Sweeney's the CEO of that organization. We'll talk to her in just a second, but we're here to talk today about a wonderful event that took place in late November in our community, the creation of the Financial Foundations Fund by Mark and Cherie Nelson, and they will make financial stability a habit for our students for generations to come and hopefully forever. And so I guess, Mark, we'll start with you. Why did you want to start this? What's
I've had a passion for economics and financial literacy and for a long time. You know, when I was in high school, and wonderful. I want to stress, had wonderful educators that were very helpful for me, but there was really no financial literacy education. And when you see all the stats, and there's too many that are depressing to go over about personal finance in this country, from whether it be bankruptcies or whether it be debt or savings, it just felt like there was a great need. And obviously there's some of the schools locally already doing it, and it just felt right to fund it and try to help give back to the communities where we've been successful in, and try to ensure that there's just generations, as you said, to come or have the skills to be able to be successful.
You saw, you're a father, so you were seeing what your children were learning. You were, as a businessman, you're seeing what your employees know when they come in, and probably not up to the standard that we all had hoped, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. We have wonderful, over the decades, we've worked with a lot of entry-level manager positions, some right out of high school, some right out of college, and definitely there's a general overall, and this isn't just a Kentucky issue, we're in multiple states, generally, there's an issue where there's a lack of understanding on basic financial literacy in this country, I suspect, is the issue, not just locally. So yeah, we just felt like my wife and I, Cherie, felt it was a good opportunity to really try to, start a little fire in our home area and try to get it, give kids in Hardin County a step up.
Right. Your story is one of success. Tell us a little bit about how you've been blessed in the business world to be able to do this.
A lot of my parents were great. We learned a lot. They were very open with me about decisions they made that they regretted, financially. I was lucky enough to have a great job and a great leader, that I still work with, that was able to help mentor me along the way. But, like many, didn't have the money to go into college or get high debt or university, went to ECC, which I was very proud of that decision, and was able to, continue to work and eventually be able to invest in companies that, that we operate. So it was it's a good boring 25-year story I just gave you, but yeah, that's where we're at today. And
Devette, you're as President and CEO of the Central Kentucky Community Foundation, which holds this fund. What does this mean for the generations of students that we'll never see, that will come way after us? But what does this mean for them?
Well, there's several beautiful parts to this story. The first is that this money will help support financial literacy forever. So like you said, for generations of students that will come way beyond us. But also it's a great example of someone saying, this is something I care about, and I recognize that there's a need in our community, like every community, and I'm willing to step up and help make a difference in it. And that's what we do. We like to connect people with the things that they care about and the ways that they can impact it in our community. So Mark and Cherie are making a generous gift. We're able to use that to work with the schools and figure out exactly how do we deploy it, how do we best invest that into these classrooms so that it makes a difference. What that looks like today, we've figured out, but that will change over time. But at the heart of the purpose of this fund is to provide quality financial literacy for our students. So that may look completely different 10, 15, 20 years from now, sure, but the support will be there for whatever that needs to look like.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because this wasn't just hey, the Nelsons write a check, you disperse the funds. That is not what this is. This is let's do the homework. Let's see how those funds are best going to be spent. And you and your team have put a lot of time and talent into figuring out what is best for curriculum purchases and things like that with these funds.
That's part of what we do. That's our job. Mark's a business person, and he makes things move and happen. And I would bet if I asked him right now, there were a couple times in this process he probably thought I was dragging my feet, and he was ready for it to go, go, go. And I like for things to go, go, go. But we were working with a lot of different people. Teachers, administrators in 4 different high schools, and we wanted to make sure that they understood what this was and that they had the time that they needed to make good decisions, so that the dollars would be best invested and not just write a check and here you all find something to spend it on. Right. Because we've got a responsibility to Mark and Cherie and anybody else that may give to this fund to make sure that those dollars are well spent. And sometimes that takes even longer than I would like for it to, but that's at the heart our role in philanthropy.
Right. The lead gift that Mr. and Ms. Nelson gave us is $65,000, and that's just not going to go away. Explain what an endowment is and how what I call the corpus of the endowment can continue to grow, and so we basically live off the interest of this fund.
Yes. Right? So Mark and Cherie gave $50,000 in an endowment fund that will mean that there will be financial literacy forever for students in these schools. Okay. The income from that endowment will help support that. Additionally, they've said, you know, we want to make sure that this gets off to a great start right now, and they know that that takes a little more money. So they've put in the money to pay for this year's curriculum and expenses for the schools, and have committed that they're going to do that for a while so that we can keep growing that fund and have the time for other people to give to it so that it can support it at the level it needs. And we know in a couple of years, as that graduation requirement comes into play in Kentucky and every student is taking that class, that those expenses are going to go up.
Mm-hmm. You talked about what it looks like now. And then it may change in 10 to 15 years. Talk about what it looks like now, how you're going to spend the monies from this fund.
So right now we've worked with the appropriate teachers at each high school to identify what their needs are. Some of them had some materials, some needed updated materials. One teacher was already set for this school year, so great. But that channel is always open to that school. They may have needs next year or in 2 years. So we've identified what those teachers need this year and purchased curriculum, teacher resources, videos, student workbooks so that they can complete those exercises. And the beautiful thing about those paperwork workbooks that sometimes people think is outdated is every kid takes that workbook home, and then mom and dad get to see some of that information. And we know from years past, we hear students say, you know, I was able to show my mom and dad this information, or they were able to read it and work through this. So that effect can multiply. So that's what we're doing this year. We funded quality curriculum for those high school teachers and filled in what they didn't have covered.
Mark, talk about how important the foundation was in this process for you.
Oh, it's pivotal. We couldn't have to DeVette and my close friend Gina Clear. We couldn't have done it without them. I wanted to find a way to give back to our community, and they were just perfect. I'd encourage anyone that has desires to get with the foundation. They're just wonderful folks and can help guide them.
As a businessman and somebody that's hired people throughout the years and the last several years, or especially where we've seen this as a pronounced problem, what's your theory? How did we get this way? How did we?
To be honest, well, how much time do you have? It's decades building. If you any basic economics, you'll see it's been decades building. But the lack of understanding in debt, the lack of explaining about future planning retirements and expenses and understanding inflation, these things are just pivotal for young folks to understand at a young age, especially right when they start working, even when they decide to go to college. I mean, there are financial decisions that it's broke my heart. I've seen some great employees that have majored in whatever, and they decided it's not there, or work isn't there when they got their degree, and they're basically working to pay off school debt, and it's heartbreaking. And that's just one small example. Credit card debt, I think we were just talking earlier, has reached over $1 trillion for Americans last year. I mean, there's a cycle that has to be broken, and we have to do it through education, plain and simple. So. Your children are going to benefit from this. Your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren are going to benefit from this. And so as you, as you start to
as we all start to wind down in life and we see our grandchildren flourish, and I guess what's your ultimate reward? What will be the most rewarding part for this when you look back on this in 50 years?
Not to sound too nostalgic, but that would be awesome to see. Hey, that kids or people I don't know say, hey, this was helpful and I was able to make good decisions, and that'll be great to see. I'd love to see stats, and DeVette and I were talking, gosh, you might not see something for 10, 15 years. Love to see our bankruptcy rates lower here in Hardin County. Do we give our kids a head start? My passion is to see that if you graduate in Hardin County from any of the 4 high schools, you're going to have a head start, financially, period. But not to be nostalgic, but my hope is it can catch fire to other areas, because this is a nationwide problem. I mean, this is, I'm not a doom and gloom guy. I'm an eternal optimist, but we have real issues in this country with spending and debt that we're not talking about at a national level at all. It's all a great distraction. Nothing matters except the subject, in my opinion. And if we don't get serious about it, and my wife and I, we just said, finally, let's just put our money where our mouth is. Can't impact the whole country, but we're going to, start here, as best we can, But and hopefully other people that have been successful can do the same. And
DeVette Mark stole my phrase. He put his money where his mouth is on this. So how can others do the same thing?
The beautiful thing is that people have their own passions, and we want to work with people to carry out what that is. So all it takes is a phone call or walking in the door and saying, this is what I'm interested in, this is what I care about, and we can work through a process for how to affect change in that, how to make a difference in that area. And like Mark said, we may not be able to change it on a nationwide level, but there's a whole lot to be said for making a difference right where you live and with the people that you see at the grocery store, that your kids go to school with. And we can make a difference right here where we are. It doesn't have to be, oh, well, we can't tackle this across the whole country, so there's no point. No, there is a point. We can get started. And we do that with whatever causes and ideas that people have. We'll sit down and we'll figure out a way to make a difference. And
we're sitting here on HCEC-TV, but this will benefit all 4 high schools in Hardin County. Right?
Yes.
Right? That's tremendous. Well, thank you both for not only sitting down with us, but for your gift, Mark, and your family, and DeVette, your foundation, you brokering the gift. We appreciate it. Appreciate it greatly. Now you're going to see some video of the announcement that we made. Actually, we did this, and we're taping this just a few days before Thanksgiving. And I know it'll be the cold, dreary days of January as you're looking at this, but hopefully it'll be warmer weather, and you can participate and show how you want to be passionate about education or just about anything in this community through the Central Kentucky Community Foundation. So let's take a look at the announcement about the Financial Foundation Fund.
We appreciate you being here for some big news for youth in our community. And we're also glad to welcome you as some of our first guests in the Home of Philanthropy, our new building here. And it's sort of fitting because the building was designed and built for exactly the purpose that we're gathered today, and that's to honor and celebrate the generosity that goes on in our community through philanthropy and the great impact that it makes. Philanthropy is a tangible expression of giving, of what matters to people. And because of that, because it is personal, for us most times, that starts with a conversation about what's important to somebody, and that's exactly what brought us to where we are today. About a year ago, Mark Nelson and I had a conversation about his passion for financial literacy. And when he talks in a moment, you're going to hear that. You're going to hear that passion and why that's so important for youth in our community. From working with local educators and legislators for the past 15 years, the foundation, we were very aware of how important this is and shared his passion for bolstering education in this area. Indulge me just a minute while I share a little bit of information about why this has been so important to us for so long. We've indulged in this long-term work because we know it's important. We know laying those foundations are important and that it's not things that will change and happen overnight. Financial literacy is it is the #1 class that adults say they wish they had when they were in high school. Wallet Hub ranks Kentucky 44th in financial literacy. That's not something we get real excited about. Financial literacy impacts 100% of our student population for their entire life. Financial literacy, the knowledge that is obtained, helps young people prevent bad decisions and also helps them learn how to win with their money. And I think that's where we all want to be in life, isn't it? Where we're winning, we're controlling our money, not our money controlling us. Quality financial literacy can help many Kentuckians manage and break that cycle of debt that they've gotten into and transform their lives. Right now in Kentucky, conservative estimates say that it costs us over $100,000 to educate one child. But nearly 80% of them, when they become adults, they're going to be living paycheck to paycheck because they haven't learned how to manage that financial piece of their life. I have lots of people to thank for some of this data and these statistics, but they're not things that we get excited about. Those are sort of the downers. But I want to share some positives about financial literacy and why we're here today. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Tiffany Spratt, who has been teaching financial literacy at Central Hardin High School, and she's going to tell a little bit about her work in that area, and she has a student, William Abel, as well.
Currently, I think all 3 high schools, at least 2 high schools in Hardin County, and I know Elizabethtown High School use part of the Dave Ramsey program, if not pieces and segments to all of the program fluidly. And we have incorporated that within our business department as well at Central, and that program has been very beneficial for our young people. We also take little pieces and parts of other programs to sort of supplement along with that. But the videos are things that touch a nerve with them. It's something that they can actually see and understand and know that, okay, that's going to be me in a year or two. What we have done with our financial literacy has been able to sort of encapsulate that into everything. Whether you're university bound, whether you're work bound, whether you're trade bound, you need that in all 3 areas. And unfortunately, sometimes we don't have maybe the knowledge at home that our parents need in order to foster a good financial base, because they just don't know any different. I wasn't taught financial literacy in high school. Thank goodness I'm in education, and that's what I do now, so I can teach that to my children, but not everybody has that foundation. And so taking those obstacles out of the way and teaching that before they go into Walmart to write a check or before they go into the real world to do those things, and to understand that just because you have checks or just because you have a card doesn't mean there's funds on that card on the other end of it. And those are just basics that, you know, we sort of giggle because maybe we've been in that situation. But it's real, and it's real for our young people. A lot of our young people don't know about a savings or a checking account until they get in with us because, well, I get paid and I just put it in my wallet, or I put it in my drawer at home. And, well, how can you compound on that? How can you build upon that? So I'm going to turn this over to William and let him share with you a little bit about his experience.
Senior in high school, I was weighing college at university, running college, working at a job, still being broke and getting into debt, or ECTC. ECTC has the same education. I'm in the Work Ready Scholarship program, so my tuition is paid. I still got small scholarships that help pay for small stuff that I have set aside. I have kind of making money off of my scholarships. I set it aside, and it's there for when I need it because you're going to need it. The economy is not going to prosper forever. You know, at one point, we're going to need to know what to do with our money. And junior year, I needed an extra class because I dropped pre-cal and took financial literacy with Sprats, and it was eye-opening. They did the Dave Ramsey course. Everyone needs to understand how far their dollar can stretch. And as a high schooler working at a Chinese restaurant, you were making the money and then you were turning around and going out on the weekends and having fun, but that money was also building in my account so that when I wanted to buy something, I could. My parents call me stingy and, you know, penny pincher, but that's okay. You know, you can be a penny pincher. It's a compliment. It was, you know, they'll tell you today, hey, William, can I loan you some money? Because I have the money set aside for anything. And a big thing in Dave Ramsey's course was an emergency fund, which I have since probably I was 16. And when I bought my car, like Ms. Spratt was saying, I got on Edmunds because I learned this in the financial literacy course. Edmunds has a 5-year, it's like a cost analysis of how much money you'll spend on your car in the 5-year span. And I bought me a little Mini Cooper because it worked out. The insurance was great. The expenses, it's a little bit to repair, but it's a great car. And without that course, I wouldn't have known to look there.
With these stories and all of this information, we're thrilled to see when we have local people in our community step up and say, you know, this all matters and I can make a difference here. As a foundation, like I said, we look for those long-term differences we can make in our community, and that's exactly what Mark and Cherie are doing for our young people. Their commitment and their passion is a great fit for us. Through their generous gift, as you can tell, as has been mentioned, to establish an endowment fund, financial literacy will continue to be supported for our students forever. Their gift gets things started and gives other people the opportunity to add to it and help make it continue to grow. So today we are excited to announce the Financial Foundations Fund with an initial gift of $65,000 for Mark and Cherie Nelson, and their commitment for ongoing support for it for years to come. So thank you, Mark and Cherie.
I've always had a passion for financial literacy, whether it be a macro or micro level, at a rather young age. Despite that, I graduated, like a lot of us, with rather limited knowledge, didn't have the financial literacy stuff, and it's very critical to me that I state I had wonderful educators. Wonderful teachers that could do the best they could. There's some, I know Gina and I went to school together, could mention right on the top of our head. But unfortunately, there was no real financial literacy education. I had little knowledge or understanding of how personal finance really works with the economy. And like many of us in this room, probably wish I could go back and grab myself at 18 and shake myself a little bit, particularly probably beyond finances, but on a lot of things, right? So I was blessed to start investing in things that did quite well in this community and gone into multiple states. One thing that started to hit me was notice that our brands had a lot of entry-level managers, 25, 26, sometimes a little younger, a lot of part-time kids, and we had some very talented individuals that understood how to lead, but had no idea how to budget, no idea of cost control, no idea of economies of scale, the things that were somewhat baffling to me. That was probably the first, thing in my head that started to click that something's wrong, it really took off in my head when our companies got large enough to where I was able to help, with my senior partners start 401k programs or retirement programs, and kind of mentally said, hey, if you're going to work for us, I want you to be able to start your retirement. And I was so excited. We had these matching programs, and long story short, hardly a third of the employees wanted anything to do with it. And in my mind, I'm like, what the heck's wrong here? What am I missing? And a lot of it, made sense as I thought through. A lot of them didn't participate, mostly from a lack of understanding of concepts that financial literacy, provides, compounding interest, how the markets work. They just didn't understand it, and I did find that, and we've all probably all been guilty of this. Young people have a hard time thinking 30 and 40 years out. They just don't. When the reality is, it should be the number one thing they are thinking about when it comes to finances. So it's heartbreaking to see a lot of young professionals with talent not think about their financial future. And that really bothered me. So with some forced education, or I should say focused education, but I'm glad about 90% of our few thousand employees are participating now. So beyond that, beyond personal experiences, there's just national statistics, I know some have been shared, that are just really troubling as a father and a member of community. I mean, some of them were mentioned here, but I saw in 2018, American credit card debt surpassed $1 trillion. Only 2 in 5 adults have a budget. The one that was shared here, not to duplicate efforts, but this is significant to point out, 40% of U.S. working adults do not have enough savings to cover a $400 emergency. I mean, at a time when the economy is quite well. These are concerning things, and this comes back to a financial literacy education that we have to work better on. So the issue is starting to get more attention, and it's exciting. However, I found this stat kind of interesting. Everyone's doing the 10-year challenge on social media, if those of you that shared it. So I got a nasty one, unfortunately, for us. Financial literacy from George Washington University says that 37% of adults can correctly answer 4 or 5 basic economic questions about inflation or interest, compounding interest. That is actually down from 42%. So our 10-year picture doesn't look good. It looks much worse. Further heartbreaking news is that in Kentucky, we're actually in a top 10 category we don't want to be in. It's in bankruptcies. And we have to ask ourselves that tough challenge as educators and leaders in the community. How many more of these individuals that have had a bankruptcy may not have had it if they had a little bit more education under the belt, and not knocking ones that couldn't have, but it's important to ask those tough questions. So then I was real excited, like many, the financial literacy education, the bills that are passing, and I know they're still working out some of that stuff. I was real excited, however, not sitting back, kind of understanding where we're at from a budget situation, and education realize that it's probably not going to be funded the way it should be, if not. So not just going to sit back so talk to my wife, and Sri obviously has always been very supportive. So what we're glad to do is try to help all the 4 high schools in the county and make sure that we give back to the community that has been very good to us. So while the problem of course is much larger than the attention it's actually getting. So I really want to challenge any leader in Hardin County to make sure that we can be a real brick wall against the negative trend that continues in our society. When it comes to financial literacy, this is a good opportunity. This fund to really invest in public schools and give schools give the tools to these teachers, quite frankly, that are incredible and do so much for our kids already. It's a wonderful opportunity to show the involvement in the community for companies that operate here without just being part of a slogan that we are part of the community. Let's really make sure we do it and put our money where our mouth is. Let's make Hardin County the beginning of a movement in this great state. Let's make sure his financial literacy programs are properly funded. And I challenge business leaders and companies and employers to really help support this. We know the challenge our schools are faced with budgeting, so let's make sure we really step up in this. We all live here. We've all heard about it. We've all seen it. Let's just step up and not just complain about it. One of my big passions, I do not want to allow a wonderful educator, like yourself, to stress about the tools he or she needs to provide education to our children, period. So to summarize, I really want to challenge other business leaders to consider this fund. For business leaders in Hardin County, let's try to get this thing going quick, and hopefully it can catch everywhere else. These students, guys, they're our future. Not just they're our customers, they're our employees, they're our neighbors. Investing in their financial future is just smart. It just makes sense. So let's try to be leaders in this financial legacy, and where we can all save a part of it. But thanks for everyone's time. I appreciate it, and we'll go there.
Thanks, Mark. So what exactly does this mean? This fund will help provide quality curriculum for our high school teachers. And let me tell you, when we sent that first email out talking to them about what they needed, can I tell you, Tiffany, I got a reply back that said, "I'm not really sure what you mean." I said, "We want to provide whatever you need to teach quality financial literacy in your classroom." And she said, "I don't know how to do that." And I said, "Well, yes, you do. You know how to teach financial literacy." She's like, "You mean I can buy something? Like there's money?" I said, "Yes, exactly." And so I realized that the first barrier we had to overcome in carrying out what Mark and Sheree want is that we had to convince people that there really were dollars to support what they needed to do in their classroom. So I had a learning curve of where we actually had to start, but we have already purchased curriculum that is starting with the second trimester of students, and we know that this is just one way to make a difference in financial literacy, because there's no one silver bullet, there is no vaccination that makes it happen, but it takes a lifetime of education and investing in our young people to make that happen. And this is a great experience for our high schoolers to be able to have. So it will help fund these classes and the resources to teach it in all 4 public high schools in Hardin County, and it's started now. Thank you all for coming today, and thank you for your interest in philanthropy and for the financial future of our youth.
Well, thanks for hanging out with us on this edition of HCS Matters. You've seen some great things today, and we'll see you on an episode near soon.